So Paramount and Skydance is trying to buy Warner Brothers, and since I usually talk a lot about DC Comics on this channel, I want to give my thoughts about this and answer the question on whether or not this will actually happen. So just in case you haven't been paying attention to the news lately, Skydance, or more specifically, David and the Ellison family, bought Paramount and they merged the two companies together, and now they are trying to do the same with Warner Brothers. Both Paramount and Warner Brothers owns a lot of stuff like TV channels and characters that are some of the most popular characters in fiction, so obviously this is raising the question on if this happens, would this be a monopoly? And in my opinion, no, because even though Paramount and Warner Brothers do own a lot in the TV and movie business, they still wouldn't have enough to rival even Disney, because Disney alone is still worth more than both of them combined, and there will still be other big companies in the film business like Universal Studios, Netflix, Apple, Amazon and Sony, and a whole bunch of smaller film companies. Now there's also other issues people have with this, like the political aspect of this, but I don't really want to get into politics on this channel. But if you wasn't complaining when these big networks was politically biased in the past, don't start complain now, and I have no idea why people still trust big news outlets anyway. But now let's talk about the big thing that is causing a lot of controversy. As we all know, Warner Brothers owns DC Comics, and fans don't want Paramount to buy Warner Bros. Because of that, and I am a big DC fan, but at this point I am kinda used to Warner Brothers and DC getting bought. It kinda feels like it gets bought every other year, and after Warner Brothers had a pretty awful year back in 2024, I knew this would potentially happen, and every time it happens, whoever buys it, normally they want to do something different with the DC universe, so this could potentially be bad news for James Gunn, who has been in charge of DC Comics for a few years now. But in those few years so far, DC has been in the worst state it has been since a long time. Since then, DC has released box office bombs like Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, Aquaman 2, and Joker 2, and they also released the Suicide Squad game and the worst Batman show of all time. But to be completely fair, these movies, shows, and games was all already being made before James Gunn was hired, but he didn't really help any of these projects because a lot of them should have been delayed, and he should have done a better job at hyping up Aquaman 2, since that was a good movie and definitely had the best chance at actually making money. But in defense of Gunn, all the projects that was completely made during Gunn tenure with DC has been successful, like Creature Commandos, Peacemaker Season 2, and the Superman movie. But the only problem is you're not going to directly make money from streaming shows, and Superman did make a profit at the box office, but then film also lost half of the Superman audience from 2013. So with James Gunn, you're kinda getting a mixed bag. You're always gonna get good reviews with the critics, but financial success isn't a guarantee. Which is kinda funny, since it was the complete opposite with Zack Snyder. He would always have awful reviews for his movies, but they would always make a lot of money. Now this brings me to the next controversy, because there are a lot of rumors that if DC does get sold, that Snyder could replace Gunn and bring back the Snyderverse, which is kinda hard for me to believe could ever happen, since even if you could get Snyder back to do it, I don't think you'll get all the Snyder actors to come back, and nobody wants Ezra Miller to come back, and even if you could get most of them to come back and replace those who doesn't, I don't think the Snyderverse would be as financially successful as it was back in 2016, because firing Gunn and bringing back Snyder would piss off a lot of Gunn fans in the same way the hiring of Gunn and the firing of Henry Cavill pissed off a bunch of Snyder fans, and then they started protesting Gunn movies. The same thing would happen, and it would just divide the fandom even more. But I could potentially see it happen if instead of Paramount buying Warner Brothers, Netflix buys them instead. And since Netflix has a very good relationship with Zack Snyder, I would say if Netflix does buy Warner Brothers, then it would basically be guaranteed that they will ask Snyder to come back to DC, and the decision would be up to him. But I can't really imagine Netflix buying Warner Brothers, because it seems like if Warner Brothers does decide to sell, then there will be a bidding war for it, and right now Paramount seems like they're a lot more interested in buying them, so it's hard for me to imagine Netflix outbidding Paramount. And if Paramount does buy DC, I think James Gunn's job at DC will be safe, depending on how well the next 2 or 3 years of DC movie goes, and with Clayface and Supergirl being the only movies for DC next year, I don't think that will be a good year from them unless they change the release date for Supergirl, because it's gonna have to compete with Spider-Man if it doesn't change the date, and the last Spider-Man movie almost made $2 billion, so you definitely don't want to compete with that. So most likely James Gunn universe will probably be dependent on how well Superman 2 does, and considering how much Paramount would have to pay for buying Warner Brothers and DC, they will probably have very high standards for it. So now this brings me to the question of, will Paramount buy DC? And yes, they will, or at the very least someone else will. You have to keep in mind Warner Brothers has been getting bought and sold a lot recently, and that's because they are in serious debt, and even though this year they went on a historical run at the box office, they still are in trouble financially, and there have been rumors of them being sold for over a year now. And to be honest, I am all for it, because these past 5 years has been awful for DC. There has been so many awful video games, TV shows, and movies, and we haven't gotten a good Batman show in over 10 years at this point. I just hope that whatever does happen, the DC universe will go back to being good again. But anyway, that's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, and if you agree or disagree with me on anything here, please comment down below.